Starting to the top left is our Protoss player. He had, I don't know how to describe it, but he had a little bit of bad luck in the last round of Code A, lost to Suoshin, finds himself therefore in the up and downs. It's the MVP player. He's called
MVP Vampire.
Doesn't like garlic. Not going outside during the day too much.
It took me a second. For a second I was like, well, first of all, how does he know? Second of all, why would we care? And then it hit me. His opponent at the right side of the map for the Slayers team, it is of course the king of Code A.
Slayers YugiOh.
And never played the card game, in fact. By the way, he's going for a 12 pull here. Quick pull on this map. This is going to punish someone who goes Nexus first, potentially.
And this is just exactly what we see from YugiOh every now and then.
Yeah.
He just mixes his builds up a little bit, and a 12 pull timing is something that some Protoss players will just not identify fast enough. They will see the pool and they will immediately assume that it's a normal pool timing. So that happens occasionally.
Yeah, it can really throw your opponent off as well. It can force someone to not go Nexus first when they planned on it, even. And something else to note about this opening so far is that Vampire actually is not going to be walling at the ramp. We've seen most players try to wall at the ramp recently, but he's actually going to be making the Nexus as part of his wall.
And it will really be very important when exactly he is going to place down his cannon, because at this point in time, YugiOh has the option of going for Zerglings right away. He's getting a 2-4. Does he get the third set of Lings?
That's going to be the question as soon as that larva pops out. And he's got it. He's not choosing it yet. Looks like he's just going to be making the 4 in the faster hatchery as the probe is chased away. Probe. Probe lets him get it.
Okay, so he does not try to be aggressive with this 12 pull, but it allows him to get the queen out a little bit earlier, the expansion as well. So just a little bit of a variation here that he feels more comfortable with.
Plus, Vampire, I feel, probably wanted to go Nexus before Forge, but didn't feel comfortable with that pull timing. And now he just had to make the Forge, which delays the Nexus slightly.
It's basically you trying to play some mind games. It's just, if your opponent does not identify that you go for a 12 pull, you have an opening where you can put on the pressure and might be lucky enough to take down a few harvesters. If your opponent identifies that you go for a 12 pull, he's forced to adjust his build, and if you then don't go for the aggression, you will be in a pretty good spot. So this is just the mind games that we always see. And sometimes it's really funny to see how these mind games work out. Every now and then you just have a player who tries to fake his opponent out. Then after the game they talk and they just realize that his opponent didn't even identify what was going on and just build his normal style. And that's what he was ahead in the game, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And
it sounds a little bit silly.
It does sound silly, but it's true. It's actually true. This probe actually just barely going to get home for Vampire. And the Lings know about the type of wall off that he's facing.
And here we have a quick information for you guys. They faced each other, of course, in Code A, and this was a match that YugiOh was able to decide in his favor with a 2-1.
Yeah, and it's kind of ironic they find themselves now in the same group. Ling will be able to actually see double gas as his position right next to it. The Overlord is close by as well, so he can scout later on the tech. With 4 gases very early on, the question will become, of course, what is Vampire's choice here? Not getting +1 starts to seem more and more like Stargate tech, but it is going to be robotics, actually.
And with the robotics, what you can do on this map, of course, is just go for the Immortal push and try to get on the high ground at the third base. This is something that is very dangerous for every Zerg player, and you try to prevent it by moving out onto the map with units early on, trying to delay this push, trying to force fields, and therefore deplete the sentry energy early on, so that when you really try to fight, your opponent will not be able to shield his Immortals. But some Protoss players will try to go for the for the robotics tech and then take a third base, which is very risky, because especially when your opponent goes for the now even getting more popular style of drop play, you have basically just no chance if he executes it correctly, because you are Your units are just thinned out between the main, the natural, and the third, and it's so hard to hold this off.
Yeah. We've only seen very few pros to be able to hold that afterwards. Oftentimes the mistake of the Zerg even forgetting to get their drop research, for example. YugiOh is going to come to the main base to scout now with his over, but with the angle he sent it, he will have to actually alter the way it's being sent. There's actually now 2 sentries, but the Lings try to come in at the same time. This is cool. It's a great way to abuse the fact that your opponent goes for a wall like this and he gets to see it.
Yep, he sees the robotics, now he knows what's coming, and he already has his tech to lair. And with YugiOh and his style, we might see him with a little bit of a different style. Actually, I've casted some European tournaments yesterday, and there was one player, he's from Poland, called Tefel. He beat Tails with a 2-0, and he defeated this Immortal push with a straight tech into Hydralisks. And later on, also Hyun used the same style in the matches against Protoss quite often. So Hydralisks apparently starting to have a little bit of a comeback in the game. Yeah. And if you think about it, it's actually, if you only wanted to defend against this one push, it's actually smart, because these unit compositions that we see from Protoss when they want to go for this Immortal push are really weak against Hydralisks. On the other hand, of course, as soon as you have a Colossus in the game, the style changes completely.
Yeah, that's a scary thing. With the Hydras, if your opponent trades okay with you, then you're in trouble because you have the wrong tech, you don't have Infestation Pit tech. But if he does not do any damage at all, then you're in a great position.
But YugiOh plays this a little bit more standard. He has a lot of Zerglings now on the way, the Roach one completed, and he goes straight for the Infestation Pit, which is another way how you can deal with this Immortal push. It's more like the standard way how to deal with it. You want to have those chain fungals on the sentries, and Vampire actually gives his opponent a lot of time to start all these upgrades.
Yeah, and he waited for the 3rd Immortal and then started to add his gateways, so this really is going to allow him actually to get Infestors out, most likely, if he wants to go for the attack. It may be that he just falls back and takes his 3rd base, but I mean, he's getting, with all the gateways he's at right now, it just doesn't make sense. He's even getting the Warp Prism. The timing here is not as quick as it could be, and I feel YugiOh, with all the Lings he has on the map, is going to be able to delay this a few times, bait out some force fields, and he's going to have his Infestors.
He just needs to go for run-bys, needs to try to flank in, force the force fields, get out of there just by himself sometime. He has 71 Zerglings right now. This is a crazy amount of Zerglings.
Yeah, he just skipped Roaches, you know?
Yeah, we only have 3 Zealots. Now the Roaches come into the picture, and with all the gas that he saved up earlier, he can get all the upgrades that we see in the production that much faster. Pathogen glands, speed for his Roaches, and the Infestors are now being built, and with 4 Infestors, he can chain fungal all those sentries without a problem at all.
Yeah, and he's going to have them, man. 5 of them about to pop out. Perfect time with the Pathogen glands. And there's just no Zealots here. The next Warping of Zealots is ready, but there's not enough of them. And now we've got a pure Sentry army that's about to face Fungals and Spine Crawlers.
Oh, and there's the first Fungal. If he times this well, he can just chain Fungal the entire army, and there we go. Fungal number 2 is he needs 3 Fungals to kill a Sentry.
And the Lings are on the other side. A great Force Fields, though, to block.
But now the Force Fields work actually against him.
Yeah.
If the Infestors walk in here and take another Fungal, and
oh, he wants to, but he's been so patient here.
He has been spotted. Vampire is using everything to the left side of the map. And now he has to get on the low ground with the Infestors again. He needs those Infestors to chain Fungal the sentries. He needs 3 Fungals to kill one of them.
And he cannot hold this 3rd base. This is a problem. And Vampire knows the Infestors out that he actually needs to tech back at home. He can actually take this 3rd hatchery down. Now his plan is, I gotta escape. But the Infestors, like you said, they're on the low ground. And Vampire actually, he's going to try to push through here. I'm not sure how much I like this.
It's going to be difficult for him.
It's going to be so difficult. Great trap on these Roaches.
I actually thought that YugiOh would be a little bit more aggressive with his Infestors as soon as he had them. I did not really think that he would try to hide them on the high ground, but rather stop his opponent in his tracks at the natural. But now he's at 120 supply against 120 and needs to be very careful. Without a 3rd base, this is going to get scary for him.
It really will. And, Vampire does turn around here. Going to lose a few Zealots actually to the side. The Ling count is still quite scary, and he needs these sentries, but fighting this army without the Infestor support that he actually has is just not, it's never going to work in his favor. YugiOh's going to lose too much. He's already tried to do a run-by. He's forced Vampire back, and I think to send the units home would be the smarter choice. He has taken that 3rd base again.
And the Templar Archive finishing, of course, means that he can get his Storm Tech, he can get Archons, and things are going to be very scary. Without the 3rd base, he just doesn't have the economy to back this up.
Yeah.
Neither does he have the production.
He can even warp in High Templar with his Warp Prism and feedback Infestors. That's possible.
There's no macro hedge.
No, none at all. He spent a lot of resources on these Lings and has not really been able to capitalize on them all too much. Vampire is just going to push through here, I think, and attack the third hatchery once more. Second wave of Lings is sent from the main base rather than the Warp Prism to catch any potential Ling run buys, and actually that's exactly what he's going to see here and catch.
Vampire's 25 army supply up, and those Zerglings will trade very cost efficiently against the Zerglings.
Yeah, 1-1 upgrades on those Zealots, and the Lings just cannot compete with that. He's got charge for the Zealots as well since he's so Zealot heavy here.
Look how fast YugiOh is dropping in supply. Vampire is in such a great position, a 40 supply lead, having the better unit composition as well, now even going for the Archons that we just mentioned. This is all and more that he could out for.
Yeah. The only problem is the Spinecrawler Forest, and he's not really going to be able to get through that. But he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
With how many times he's killed this hatchery, he's got +2 about to finish. If he attacks here, I think it would be a mistake. He should just take his own third. He's killed the Overlord there. He's got the resources to make the Nexus.
And he will get it. He will take a Nexus. He will get a fourth base. First of all, of course, the third. And now we have also the transition with the Robotic Spade. So Vampire is doing everything right.
He really is, and you know what's funny is that almost no one would get charged before Blink in this matchup in this situation, but Vampire is actually just sticking with these Zealots so he can get all this tech out, get the Templar Archives up, for example, and I really like his choice to get charged since he has this many Zealots, and since YugiOh made so many Lings, it's like, well, this just seems like a no-brainer. He's going to try to do run buys. I'm going to have my Zealots faster. They're going to charge against the small Roach count.
The one scary part is, of course, the Infestor count of YugiOh. He has 10 of them, and they are on full energy. But the rest of the Zerg player's army is just not going to be a big problem for Vampire.
He's just consistently fighting without his Infestors because he wants to keep his Infestors home for defense, but every time he fights without them, he loses.
He wants to go for run buys, and they're just not successful. Now he loses the third base once again, and he's just falling farther and farther behind in the game.
Yeah, when you don't have any Ling run buy or any Ling upgrades, Ling run buys are not effective against a player who can warp in 6 Zealots to defend.
He can kite those Zealots, of course, but he will still lose a fair amount of Roaches, and actually he will lose all of them as the main force of the army is now walking to the bottom left.
He's even cornered by these Zealots, no way to go. Nice little burrow here to keep those alive, but YugiOh's production is stifled so much. His opponent has that third Nexus up now. He's got the tech into Colossus range, +2 armor on the way, interestingly enough. Not getting a second forge, but going for the armor instead of +3.
And also a big problem for YugiOh is, of course, that he is going to run out of minerals in his main base. He attempts to take his third again, but also the Observer in position to spot it immediately. And with the Warp Prism and all the force that he has, he can just walk in here again.
Oh, the Observer just barely survives here for a little bit longer. He's moving the spines at the worst possible time.
And this is what Vampire was waiting for. He's moving in. The Infestor Terrans are now in there. This is a little bit scary. Vampire has to be very careful. Fighting here will cost him a fair amount of units.
It will cost him a ton of sentries, for example. The Zealot's actually not able to do very much damage. The Roaches all fall to the Immortals, but the next wave of Lings will be a problem. More Stalkers warping in, and YugiOh, I think he may just not quite have enough.
Nah, it doesn't look like it. He's down to 98 supply. He has 1,000 minerals, but he does not have the lava. This is his biggest problem. We talked about it earlier. Without the macro hatch, he just doesn't have the production to keep this going.
And all these Infested Terrans are going to get taken out by the Colossi too quickly. He's just going to pull back against those Spinecrawlers for a little bit longer. The Immortals remain alive, and it looks like YugiOh will not. After there's a blink forward to target down these Infestors, gets several. And YugiOh now basically out of luck. He's not going to be able to hold this third hatchery. The second Colossus is already rallying across the map.
I don't really know why YugiOh never built a macro hatch. He has 1,000 minerals that he just can't get rid of. He can't do anything. And, well, in the end fight, for example, he had 1,500 minerals and no hard lava. Now he's getting a double macro hatch, but I'm sorry, YugiOh, this is way too late.
Yeah, and he gets a 1 Corruptor out, 2 Corruptors, in fact, actually, but they die before they can kill the Colossus. Second Colossus is walking across the map. GG.
I think he was really hoping that he could take his third base, and when the third base was killed and then just cancelled over and over again, he was in this mindset. He was like, well, I will have my third, and never really realized that he needs the lava with a macro hatch. So Vampire also with the first win in this group, and the King of Code A is once again headed into exactly this week.
You know, Vampire's play actually really impressed me. Attacking that one time into the Infestors was a little bit iffy without the Colossus. His Colossus was almost there too, so I thought that was kind of strange, but everything else that he did was really smart. I really appreciate his play. Another thing to talk about is YugiOh's creep spread. I feel could have been a lot better. That was something that really hurt him. And the idea for the Lings is awesome. I get it because he saw very few Zealots. He wants to be very cost efficient while taking those Infestors. Doesn't want to use gas on Roaches. But then afterwards he kept making Lings and the run-bys were just never able to do anything.
I feel losing the third base, of course, always a problem in this matchup, but if you're not able to establish the third after this, it becomes just game deciding. And him not attacking with those Infestors was something that I found a little bit odd.
Because he just kept them by the Spine Crawlers.
He had 2 Fungals that he used already, and most of the sentries were without shields. They were already down to the orange, so they lost hit points. Another Fungal would have actually killed him, and then instead of moving in as soon... The one situation that really caught me a little bit was when Vampire had to use force fields at the bottom of the ramp against the reinforcements.
Yeah.
And then we suddenly had the situation where the force fields in the main base vanished, so the Infestors had free reign to move in, and the Protoss army could not escape. They were completely clumped up on the ramp. It was the best position to get additional Fungals off. If he Fungals here, the sentries die, and then the Zerglings and the Roaches can stream in. But he used those Infestors to go onto the high ground, and this is something that Vampire saw with the Observer and moved exactly to the side of the map to dodge the Fungals. So that was, in my opinion, game deciding.
That was actually one of the biggest game deciders. He had a bunch of Infestors he wasn't using. That's so much gas dumped in. Another problem, I think, was the Lings he made really limited his larva, especially with no macro hatchery. But now, we are going into our next match, our third match. This is a 6-player group. It's going to be between Supernova, recently joining MTW, against Killer here, a player who is a big fan favorite. I'm really excited to see how both of these players are going to do in the group.
And Supernova, of course, coming from a win at the campus party in Germany, in Berlin. And he also performed quite well at the IM, which was in Cologne at Gamescom. So Supernova with a very... He has a lot of momentum that he can just carry in this game, and Killer in the last games that we've seen from him was not that successful. And this is actually a pretty decent matchup for Supernova with a 59% win ratio. Oh, the Golem Wizard appears in the booth.
Yeah, and I have to say that I feel Supernova is way underrated right now. It was actually such a tragedy that OGS disbanded. He was left teamless for quite some time, but now he's with MTW. Obviously helping them out a lot, sending him to these events they did so well at.
Do you remember that we were talking about Supernova already at the end of last year when he played a WCG, and that he's really underrated? And I think he still is. He may still have more appearances in foreign leagues and tournaments right now these days, so he's a bit more on the radar, but still he didn't really have his breakthrough in Korea just yet.
You know, that's the thing about Supernovas, man. You never know when they're going to explode.
True.
And I think that this guy may have his moment yet. Obviously, he's got to get to Code S first, and a player like Killer may give him some problems. We talked about this actually a little bit before. I feel like Killer is the most aggressive player in this entire group. You never really know what Killer's going to do. He can play the late game. He's really good at that. But in the early game, he could do anything. He could 4-gate you. He may put 4-gate pressure off of 2-base in this matchup. He could even do a Void Rail, and you don't know.
And Killer was, well, he lost at MLG against Marine King, against the Terran player. He lost also to Hart, and well, his teammate. And Killer, I don't know. He's very aggressive, as you already pointed out, but sometimes it seems to me that he's in these situations, in these groups, he always gets the shot end of the stick for some reason.
Yeah, he's not quite able to get out. He's been struggling for quite some time, in fact, to produce really great results.
He wasn't able to get back into this higher level that he played before. You're certainly right about that.
Yeah, he used to be known as one of the best processors in the world.
Yeah. And right now we actually have the Golem Wizard still working his magic. Apparently there's some technical issue with the equipment, maybe the sound of Killer. We'll find out. Supernova is just waiting, and that's the one thing about Supernova. This guy always looks tired.
Yeah, he does look tired all the time. You know, he never really has a happy expression, which is always kind of sad for him. But I think now that he's on MTW, I think he's going to get a little bit happier.
With OGS, it was so funny when he was at the GSL and just sitting in his booth, and the guy just slept through the first few games. At least that's how it looked like. It was always so funny. Supernova is just the calmest guy in the world. He doesn't get nervous, not because he's so focused in the game, but I don't know, it's just like yeah, I have to play again, but it's okay, I didn't sleep this night, I'm not nervous at all.
It's so funny if I just imagine a situation where Supernova wins a game, and afterwards he just like puts a pillow and takes a nap, and someone else from his team comes in and like joins the lobby for him and stuff, and wakes him up when the game actually loads, and then he runs out and then he has to split his SCVs.
How weird would it be if Supernova actually wins a game, suddenly just starts fist pumping and screaming like crazy?
That would be.
That would completely throw me off.
I wouldn't believe it was him.
Yeah. Imposter.
Man, I don't know, man. He could explode at any moment.
Yeah.
And that kind of explosion is quite large.
He needs the explosion right now because Killer is finally in the lobby, so the game can be started. Our map is Cloud Kingdom for this Terran versus Protoss, and the countdown actually started already. So I guess that we will jump into the map in just a few seconds. So we have the last two players in the group with their first game. It is Supernova against Killer here at the GSL up and down matches. Once again, brought to you by Karl and Wolf.